This is a teaching message by Pastor Forrest Hill, founder and pastor of Church of the Living Water, Austin. Now, here's Pastor Hill with a life-changing message.
All right. That's called pointing out certain things. Once you find out your accountability, your responsibility, you're supposed to make changes. Don't lose the train of thought here. See, so even though there are some victories in your life, God still wants to tell you, put a shirt on when you walk around my house. Let's point out some things that keep besetting you. And listen, let me teach you how to run this race with patience. Many young men and young women, when they get out of the house, they think they're going to be rich overnight. There is no creature like that. I'm sorry. Let's say it another way. They think they're going to be wealthy. Now, I made this statement. I'm going to make it again. When you get paid on payday, you rich. Well, you got more than what you had. You are rich. But rich means I have just enough to do what I need to do. Wealthy is another creature altogether. And chances are, in this society, the majority of people in here will not be wealthy. I'm going to show you how that works. Everybody that's wealthy, now, wealthy is a different thing. Wealthy means I don't have to go to work for a month and it ain't going to bother me. Anybody here wealthy? Listen to me. The NFL player, the NBA player, the Major League Baseball player, they're not wealthy either. They're rich. But you let them stop playing. That's why some of them play till they about to fall apart. I saw a guy, what's that boy's name? Play basketball. He plays for Cleveland. Is his name J.R. Smith? J.R. Smith is old. For basketball, listen, J.R. Smith is old for human. J.R. Smith been playing basketball since my kids were kids. And my oldest son is 33 years old. And I'm saying, why is he still playing? Because he's not wealthy. He made just enough to do whatever it is that he was doing. Wealth is a different thing. And everybody's not wealthy. You know who's wealthy? The owners. Not the players, the owners. Whoever's making the rules is wealthy. All right. Now, back to Genesis. Verse number 1. And Abraham journeyed from thence toward the south country and dwelled between Kadesh and Shur, and sojourned in Gerar. And Abraham said unto Sarah his wife, she is my sister. And Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent and took Sarah. But God came to Abimelech in a dream by night and said unto him, behold, thou art but a dead man, for the woman which thou hast taken, for she is a man's wife. Now here's the thing about this passage here. Abraham journeyed, in his journey in the promised land, he went toward the south from where he was. So he was headed toward Egypt. Now, before he went down there, he got into trouble. He wasn't supposed to forsake the land of promise. You guys remember that teaching? But now he's going toward the south, and in the south are people called the Philistines. But here's something strange. He went and he stayed in the city of Gerar. And him and his wife had a previous agreement that when we come across people, you tell them you're my sister. So when Abraham moved to a city, it's not like you moved to a city. Abraham's wealthy. Okay? When a company comes to town, the city knows it because of the wealth they have. and they can benefit from the wealth. You with me? You know, you see, like when Dell's got to be big, they're wealthy now. And whenever they do something, the city knows that they're doing it. Apple, when Apple came to town, whatever Apple is doing, the city knows it. Well, when Abraham comes to town, they know it. Abraham is wealthy. He comes with all of his cattle, all of his sheep, all of his camels, all of his servants. The man had some 300 something servants that fought in a war with him. So when he comes to town, he gets the attention of the leadership. And I was saying to my son and daughter-in-law last night, talking about Sarah. Now at this time, Sarah's 90 years old or older. And Abimelech said, hey, she look all right. I'm thinking to myself, really? No, that's my thought. And Isaac said, well, Dad, you got to think back in that day, things were a little bit different. I said, I guess so, but I don't know how much different that would have to be. I'm saying to myself, Abraham, your wife looked pretty good, boy, if that king wanted her. And they told the king, well, we brothers and sisters. And Abraham let him take Sarah. But God is not in agreement with this. Now I love to talk to the Bible scholars and say, well, Abraham lied. How is it that God blessed Abraham in all of his lies and his bondage? I beg to differ with that, because God made a promise to Abraham, and it concerned Abraham and Sarah, not Sarah and Abimelech. And what God is doing is God is looking down the line when Jesus comes. And Jesus must come through the line of Abraham, not through the line of Abimelech. And he must come through Abraham and Sarah. In Genesis chapter 12, he said, listen, he tells Abraham, I'll bless you. I'll bless those that bless you, curse those that curse you. Now this is important to you. Don't you get tired. See, because whatever God said he's going to do according to his will, he's going to do that thing. And he's going to put you in a position to get things right, but he's still going to perform it. See, because we're a little blind. We want God to do any and everything according to our will. But God does everything for his name's sake. He don't do it for your sake. In spite of what people have taught you about being blessed, let me tell you something. The blessing of the Lord is Jesus Christ. And everything he does because of Jesus, not because of you. Without Jesus, he can't love you. Without Jesus, he won't give you any love. He won't give you any mercy. He won't give you any compassion without him. So Abimelech is about to interfere with the purpose of God. And here's the thing that I find interesting. When you read about the Philistines, of which Abimelech was, what we read about them, they were thugs and heathens. They were. But at some point, they knew the Lord. See, people make you think that the people of the Bible didn't know God. Yes, they did. But the Bible says they changed. They chose to do something different. Just like any and every one of us. At some point, we decide. Now, I was talking to a friend of mine, and he said he was talking to his son, and his son said, I believe in God. He said, but you made us go to church, and I don't want to go to church. Now, and his father didn't quite understand what he was saying. And I'm saying, well, he's trying to explain to you what he felt as a child. This is what he felt as a child. Their parents didn't go to church. So on certain days, they went home. And they were doing things, but we can't do it because we got to go to church. That's what he meant. That's what he meant. So all of his friends weren't saved. And he wanted to do what his friends were doing. And now he lays that at daddy's feet. As though daddy forbid him to be what he wanted to be. That's why I don't like to go to church now. I'm like, well, no, that's not really the truth. That's not how that works. See, at some point, we all have been introduced to God, but at another time, we decide to do something else because of the way we perceive what we think God is. It was an inconvenience for me. I had some other things that were more important and you wouldn't let me do it. As if when I made you go to church, I was wrong. I was not wrong. They never said it about school. You made me get up and eat breakfast. They never say that. Are you understanding what I'm saying? See, it's what they perceive to be an inconvenience. So at some point, the Philistines believed that it was an inconvenience to serve God. I'm going to show you something here. In the book of, where do I want to go? 2 Kings, 1 Kings 16. It became inconvenient for Israel to serve God. So that would mean that it can become inconvenient for Christians to walk with the Lord. They'll walk with him until there's something else I want to do. Huh? Listen, let me show you what the church has had to compromise with to keep the people where they need to be. They've had to change their services on Super Bowl Sunday. Well, nobody will come to church. We're going to rent big screens. We're going to buy chicken wings, and we'll have us a Super Bowl Sunday. Because they know if they don't, somebody ain't coming. They're going to have their own Super Bowl party. You know that's true. Y'all looking at me like, we so holy, we wouldn't do that, Pastor. Child, please. I am not crazy. It changes over a period of time. When things are an inconvenience, we no longer want to be what God wants us to be. We can be holy. Listen, let me tell you what I believe about this. I believe we can live holy until we get paid. Our prayer life is strong when a person's broke and sick and in trouble. But let everything be eased. Let everything be eased on you. You know, we don't pray as much. We don't seek God as much. You know, the whole time that we got our drought in our lives, we will read the Bible. We don't even get tired. We can fast. We can pray. But as soon as we deem something to be the blessing of God, we're basically finished with God. Now, I know I ain't crazy because that's the pattern of Israel. Israel was in the wilderness talking about how hungry they were, and God gave them manna. And you know what? They ate manna for so long that they told me, we hate this light bread. You know, I'm thinking you can always go back to eating dirt. That's what they said. We loathe this light bread. God's like, well, you were begging for food the other day. That is consistent with the people on this planet. The Philistines, at one time, I'm going to show you this in a minute, but I want to show you what Israel did. They walk with God. This Philistine king, Abimelech, knew God. How do you know? Because God talked to him in a dream. If you don't know God, God ain't talking to you. That's why I ain't letting no sinner come to me and tell me, well, the Lord showed me. I'm like, boy, stop. The Lord ain't showed you nothing. He told me to tell you. Are you sure? Yes. Go into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. That's not the creature preaching to me. God told you to tell me. No, I know a little bit more about God than you give me credit for. Where did I tell you to go? 1 Kings 16. Let's start at verse number 17. Watch this. This is interesting. And Omri went up from Gibbethon, and all Israel with him, and they besieged Tirzah. And it came to pass, when Zimri saw that the city was taken, that he went into the palace of the king's house and burnt the king's house over him with fire and died. Now, here's the thing about Omri. Omri came to power over the nation of Israel through a series of plans and assassinations. That's how he became king. Now, God never intended for the nation of Israel to produce kings. He intended for kings to come from Judah, not Israel. Now listen to this. See, because I'm going to try to show you this real briefly without having to go through all the scriptures. At one time, the tribes were unified. The 12 tribes were unified into one tribe. And God intended for the king to come out of the tribe of Judah, or out of Jacob's son named Judah. But at another time, they split. And there were 10 tribes that went together, and they called themselves Israel. And then Judah and one other tribe, they went together. And God honored the king of Judah because that's where he said Christ would come. Well, the Israelites, they began to get their own kings, and none of them were right, because that's not what God honored. But he allowed them to have their kings. Well, here's this man, Omri. Omri was a wicked old man, and he plotted and he planned until he became king. He made this man panic and burned the palace down around himself. Now, watch this in verse 19. For his sin, verse 18. And it came to pass, when Zimri saw that the city was taken, that he went into the palace of the king's house and burnt the king's house over him with fire and died. For his sins which he sinned in doing evil in the sight of the Lord, and walking in the way of Jeroboam, and in his sin, which he did to make Israel to sin. Now the rest of the acts of Zimri and his treason that he wrought, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel? Then were the people of Israel divided into two parts. Half of the people went with Tibnah, and half the people, the son of Ginath, and to make him king, and half followed Omri. So now the nation of Israel is divided. Half went with one man, half went with Omri. But now what happened was there was a war, and Omri prevailed, and he became king. But here's the thing that it says about him. But he did evil in the sight of the Lord. Now when you read about the kings of Israel, that's a consistent thing. They did evil in the sight of the Lord. Not only did they do evil in the sight of the Lord, but they caused the people to sin. And that's what happened with the nation of the Philistines. All right, the kings begin to get evil, and when they become evil, then the nation changes. The Bible says in Proverbs 14 that righteousness exalted a nation, but sin is a reproach to anybody, any people. So here's the thing. You can see that here, that this nation will go a certain direction depending on who's in office. And the last 2 years, we have seen some of the craziest things out of the people. But we've seen some of the craziest things out of the leadership. Now listen to this. Here's the thing about that. If the religious group of that nation convinces you that this is what God wants, then everybody goes that direction. Now let me use the United States for an example. It has been said that God has chosen this present president, and if anybody comes against it, God is going to judge him. And here we are, we're trying to judge. Well, is lying still wrong? Is fornication still wrong? Adultery still wrong? Is pay for play, isn't that wrong? But the church is saying, an element of it is saying this is what we want. And so what we're seeing is certain things coming out of our government, and it is passing on to the people. And we're confused because it seems as though those people that we once watched on TV seem to agree with it. And somehow or another, I might be missing God. Now, I don't know. I must be crazy. But I ain't letting you tell me no anything. Well, it's in the Bible. I said, show me. Show me in the scriptures. One of the preachers said that God showed him in a vision this president sitting at the right hand of the Lord. See, the thing of it is this. Now I want you to listen. See, because I've mentioned a lot of things. And I don't mean no harm. I'm just saying this. I've said some things about Israel, the nation, being divided into two kingdoms. And some of us have heard that for the first time. But that's been the Bible all of your life. All of your life. It's been the Bible all of your parents' life. That after David and after Solomon, the nation of Israel was divided into two groups. And some of us didn't know that. And the problem has been is that we have put more stock in those standing behind the pulpit than the book they're supposed to be representing. And we don't read nothing. We're too caught up with ourselves and what we think we need. And then we begin to change socially. Now, I know what is happening in this nation. There's a push to get us to respond to the hatred. And I understand, because when I see it, I would like to respond, but I can't respond the way I want to. For if I do, then listen, if we all thought to respond a certain way, it's chaos. It would be chaos. We would have civil war and civil unrest. We don't know what to do about police brutality. There's something to do, but we don't know what it is that we need to do. We getting the police called on us because we black. There's a black man standing out here on the street. And the police come. And you may get your feelings hurt because you were a black person standing on the street. And the purpose of it is to get you to get outside your character. Remember, righteousness exalted a nation. So we got to find from God what we need to do, or our nation will change. There is an answer to it. I don't necessarily have it, but I know who does. See, here's what's happening. Go back to Genesis. Here's what's happening in Genesis. Verse 4. But Abimelech had not come near her, and he said, Lord, wilt thou slay also a righteous nation? So God told him, you're but a dead man, because you took another man's wife. He said, but I didn't know it was another man's wife. If I had known that, I wouldn't have done that, Lord. What happened? How long had this been going on? How long has Sarah been living with this man? Long enough for the king to seek the Lord to find out something's going on in my kingdom. I can't figure it out. You know what's going on here? See, you got to be able to read this carefully. God said, you but a dead man. What's a dead man? One who cannot reproduce. He can't reproduce. I want you to know Abimelech didn't have a wife. Abimelech had wives. And his wives had stopped getting pregnant. Now here you are the king, and you got a harem of wives. You're used to somebody always being pregnant. I know. We'll read it like this is about 10 minutes worth of stuff that went on here. But no, They've been down there a while, long enough for this king to say, now something's wrong. Something is not right. Huh? I'm going to get to it so you don't think I'm adding stuff to the scriptures. But he's like, something's not right. Not only is it not right, no one in his kingdom is getting pregnant. So now, not only are my wives not getting pregnant, but I've noticed that nobody in the entire kingdom, nobody in the city. Surely now, it would take us a while to figure out if every woman in Round Rock and Austin didn't get pregnant. It would take a while before we figured that out. You go to work and you used to seeing at least 2 or 3 pregnant women on your job, depending on where you work, and ain't nobody pregnant. God was going to make that whole nation sterile. You don't know why? Before he allowed Sarah to have a baby by Abimelech. Remember, God had already spoken the blessing of having a baby over Sarah. Look at chapter 21, verse 1. And the Lord visited Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did unto Sarah as he had spoken, and Sarah conceived. So the process of conception was already confirmed in her, but wasn't nobody going to get pregnant as long as that man had Abraham's wife. Because Sarah was destined to have one child. And that child was destined for his seed to be brought into this earth to redeem man. And God put everybody on hold. And listen, Abraham went down here, but this king knew the Lord. He goes back, he's talking about, what's going on here? What's happening? And the Lord said, you took another man's wife. He said, who? Abraham. He said, and I intended to kill you and your people. And here's the conversation. Here's what he said. Look at this in verse 5. Said he not unto me, she is my sister? And she said herself, he is my brother. In the integrity of my heart and the innocency of my hands have I done this. I didn't know this. I didn't do this on purpose. I wasn't trying to curse this man.
This has been a teaching message from Church of the Living Water at Austin. For more information about our ministry, please go to our website at livingwateraustin.net.